Picture this. It's midnight, 28 degrees outside. A woman stands on a frozen porch holding her 10-day-old twin babies. She's bleeding through her hospital pajamas. She just had surgery 10 days ago. Her mother-in-law just spit in her face and called her babies bastards.
Look at this, Sarah.
Her husband,
we know
the man
everything.
she loved enough to marry,
DNA results
pushed her out the
prove
door
it. How
himself.
could you lie?
Locked it,
not true,
turned off the
please.
lights, left her there to freeze with their newborn sons. She had $43. At least, that's what they thought. What they didn't know, she owned the house they just
As
threw
you
her
can
out
see
of,
from the financial
and
charts,
22 others
the
on that
Mitchell
street,
family assets
and
are
the company
significantly
her husband
undervalued.
worked for, and half the commercial real estate in the city. She's a billionaire, and she'd been pretending to be poor for 4 years to find real love. But tonight the pretending stops. And what she does to them next, the revenge she orchestrates, is so perfectly brutal, so completely legal, and so deeply satisfying, you won't believe it actually happened. If you've ever been betrayed, underestimated, or thrown away by people who should have loved you, stay until the very end. Because trust me, you need to hear how this billionaire made them pay. And if you love a good revenge story where justice actually wins, hit that like button right now, drop a comment telling me if you would have done the same thing, and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Because what happens next will shock you. Let me take you back to where it all began. The door slammed behind me. I stood there on the front porch at midnight, December 23rd, 2024, holding my 10-day-old twin sons. Both of them were screaming. The temperature was 28 degrees. I was wearing thin hospital pajamas, bleeding through them. My mother-in-law had just spit in my face. Her last words still echoed in my ears. Take those bastards and never come back. My husband, the man who promised to love me forever, pushed me out the door himself. Then he turned his back and walked inside. The door locked with a final terrible click. The porch light went off, leaving us in darkness. I had $43 in my wallet, or so they thought. What the Mitchell family didn't know was that I owned the house they just threw me out of, and the 22 other houses on this street, and the company Ryan worked for, and half the commercial real estate in Greenville, North Carolina. My name is Sarah Blake. I'm a 32-year-old billionaire who spent 4 years pretending to be poor. This is the story of the cruelest betrayal I've ever experienced, and how I made them pay for every single second of it. If you've ever been underestimated, betrayed by the people who were supposed to love you, or thrown away like trash, stay until the end, because what I did to them, they never saw coming. Let me take you back to where it all began. 4 years ago, I was Catherine Sarah Blake. Yes, the Blake from Blake Holdings. At 28 years old, I became a billionaire overnight when I took my parents' dying software company public. My parents, Andrew and Catherine Blake, had founded a small property management software company in Boston back in 1995. Nothing fancy, just basic software that helped landlords track rent payments and maintenance requests. In 2017, they died in a plane crash. Private plane, bad weather, they didn't make it. I was 25 years old, and I inherited a company that was $3 million in debt and bleeding money every month. Everyone told me to sell it, liquidate, cut my losses, but I couldn't. It was all I had left of them, so I didn't sleep. I worked 100-hour weeks. I taught myself AI programming. I revolutionized the entire system. I created Blake OS, artificial intelligence that could predict maintenance needs, optimize rent pricing, manage entire building systems automatically. By 2020, we had contracts with property management companies in 43 states. In March of that year, we went public. I became a billionaire at 28 years old. Forbes called me the prop tech princess. Fast Company called me a genius. I had everything, except I had nothing. Because 6 months before the IPO, I found out my fiancé Marcus was planning to marry me, then immediately divorce me and take half of everything. He'd been working with his lawyer for months, had forged documents, was planning to claim he'd contributed to the company's success. He almost succeeded. We caught him 3 days before the wedding. The criminal trial was a nightmare. Media everywhere. My face on every tabloid. Tech heiress targeted by gold digger fiancé. I testified for 6 days. He got 5 years for fraud and attempted theft. But something inside me died during that trial. Trust. I stopped trusting anyone. I stopped dating. I stopped believing anyone could love me for me. They only saw dollar signs. They only saw what I could give them. So in 2021, I made a decision. I moved to Greenville, North Carolina, a mid-sized city where nobody knew me. I created a completely separate identity. I told people I was Sarah Blake, freelance copywriter. My parents had died, left me a small life insurance payout, $100,000, enough to buy a modest condo. That was my story. My lawyer, David Harrison, and my assistant, Emma Rodriguez, were the only people who knew the truth. I had them manage my actual life, the board meetings, the investments, the empire, while I tried to live like a normal person. I just wanted to know if someone could love plain Sarah. Sarah the copywriter. Sarah who drove a used Honda Civic. Sarah who clipped coupons and worried about her electric bill. I wanted to be seen as human, not as a bank account with a pulse. In September 2021, I met Ryan Mitchell at a charity fundraiser for the Greenville Public Library. I was there because I actually loved libraries. They had been my refuge as a kid. He was there because he volunteered on weekends reading to kids. I watched him that afternoon before we officially met. He was reading Where the Wild Things Are to a group of 6-year-olds, doing all the voices, making them laugh. He was kind, patient. He didn't check his phone once. He was present. When we finally talked, he asked about my work. I told him I was a copywriter. He said, "That's cool. I'm in property management." Not exactly exciting, but it pays the bills. He didn't try to impress me. He didn't brag. He asked questions. He listened. We went for coffee after the event, then dinner the next week, then a movie, and slowly, carefully, I let myself fall for him. I had Emma run a background check, of course. I'm not stupid. Ryan Mitchell, clean record, paid his taxes, no debt except student loans, good credit score. He worked for Hudson Property Management, which ironically was actually a subsidiary of one of my holding companies. But it was buried under so many layers of corporate structure that even Ryan's boss didn't know who really owned it. I watched him for 6 months before we made it official. I needed to be sure, and he seemed genuine. He paid for dates even though I knew he couldn't really afford it. He remembered small things I mentioned. He was patient with me when I was anxious or distant. He didn't push. After a year, I almost told him the truth a dozen times. But every time I got close, I'd remember Marcus. I'd remember the look in his eyes when he realized I'd discovered his plan. The coldness, the calculation, the pure greed. So I stayed quiet, and we built what I thought was a real life together, Thanksgiving 2022. Ryan invited me to meet his family. I should have known then. I should have seen it. The Mitchell house was a split level in a middle-class neighborhood. Nice enough, neat lawn, American flag on the porch. Barbara Mitchell answered the door wearing a dress that was way too formal for a family dinner and enough perfume to choke a horse. "So you're Sarah," she said, looking me up and down like I was a used car she was considering buying. "Ryan's told us so much about you." The way she emphasized so much made it clear he hadn't told them much at all. Inside, Tom Mitchell was setting the table, quiet, barely acknowledged me. Melissa was there with her then-husband, Derek. She hugged me, but it was one of those hugs where the person doesn't actually touch you. She whispered, "Cute outfit. Target?" It wasn't a compliment. Dinner was tense. Barbara asked invasive questions immediately. "So where did you grow up?" "Boston area." "Oh, fancy. And your parents?" "They passed away a few years ago." "Oh." Pause. "Did they leave you anything?" Ryan interrupted. "Mom, come on." "What? It's a reasonable question. I'm just trying to get to know her." She asked about my job. When I said freelance copywriter, she did this little laugh. "So you work from home. That must be nice. Very flexible. Not exactly a career, though, is it?" "It pays my bills," I said. "Well, that's good because Ryan's salary isn't exactly going to support a family of 4. She smiled when she said it, like it was a joke. It wasn't a joke. Melissa jumped in. "Sarah, that's a beautiful bracelet. Is that real silver?" "It was actually platinum and worth $12,000, a gift I'd bought myself. But I'd learned to wear my expensive jewelry and say it was fake." "No, just costume jewelry," I lied. "Oh, it looks real." You have such good taste for someone on a budget. The whole night was like that. Little cuts, passive-aggressive comments. Barbara questioned everything, where I lived, what I drove, how I spent my time, whether I went to church. When I said I wasn't particularly religious, she actually gasped. Oh, well, Ryan was raised in the church. Our faith is very important to us. Ryan tried to defend me, but weakly. Mom, not everyone. I'm just saying it would be good for her soul, for both their souls, if they're going to be serious. On the drive home, I told Ryan his family was a lot. They're just protective, he said. They'll warm up to you. Reader, they did not warm up to me. We got engaged in June 2023. Ryan proposed at the Botanical Gardens. Simple, sweet, not expensive. I loved him for that, for not trying to impress me, for thinking a picnic in a grandmother's ring was romantic. It was. The wedding was small, September 2023. Just 40 people. I paid for everything, told Ryan I'd been saving for years and wanted to splurge. The venue was $8,000. I'd spent more than that on a handbag the month before. But he didn't know that. Barbara criticized every choice. The dress was too modern. The flowers were too expensive. The venue was too casual. Why weren't we getting married in a church? What would people think? At the reception, she gave a toast that ended with, "Welcome to the family, Sarah. I hope you'll be a good wife to my son, and remember that family always comes first." The emphasis on family was clear. She meant her family, not me. But the first year of marriage was actually beautiful. Ryan was everything I'd hoped for. We laughed. We traveled, small trips he thought I was paying for with credit cards. I took him to Maine, to Charleston, to Nashville. We built a life. I almost forgot I was living a lie. Almost. We rented a small house, cute, 3-bedroom, 1,500 square feet. What Ryan didn't know was that I owned it through a shell corporation and was basically paying rent to myself. I'd bought the whole neighborhood as an investment in 2020. Life was simple, normal. I did my freelance work, which meant I'd disappear into my office for hours. And Ryan thought I was writing marketing copy, but I was actually running a billion-dollar empire via video calls with my C-suite executives. I thought I could do this forever. I thought I could be both people, billionaire CEO and simple wife. Then I got pregnant, and everything changed. March 2024. I'd been feeling exhausted, nauseous. I took a test at home. Positive. I took 3 more. All positive. I made a doctor's appointment. The ultrasound changed everything. "Congratulations," Dr. Patterson said. "You're having twins." My brain short-circuited. Twins? I was not prepared for one baby, let alone 2. But then I saw them on the screen, 2 little blobs, 2 heartbeats flickering, and something in my chest cracked open. I cried. Happy tears, terrified tears, all of it. Then the doctor said, "There's one concern. You have placenta previa. The placenta is covering your cervix. It might resolve itself as the pregnancy progresses, but right now you're high risk. You'll need to take it very easy. No heavy lifting, limited stress, lots of rest." I told Ryan that night. He was thrilled. He picked me up, spun me around, set me down carefully when I reminded him about the high-risk part. "Twins," he kept saying. "We're having twins." Then his face changed. "Wait, can we afford this? Daycare for 2 babies is—" "We'll figure it out," I said. I wanted to tell him right then. Tell him money would never be an issue. But old fears stopped me. What if he changed? What if he looked at me differently? So I stayed quiet. Again. We told his family 2 weeks later. Sunday dinner at the Mitchell house. Barbara had made pot roast. We waited until after dinner. "Mom, Dad, Melissa, Sarah, and I have news. We're pregnant with twins." The silence was deafening. Tom smiled, said congratulations. Melissa's face went white, then forced a smile. "Oh, wow, that's great." Barbara put down her fork very slowly. "Twins," she repeated. "Yes, we're so excited," Ryan started. "How are you planning to afford 2 babies, Ryan? Your salary barely covers your mortgage as it is." "Mom, I'm being realistic. Daycare alone is $2,000 a month per child. Formula, diapers, doctor visits. Have you thought about this?" We'll figure it out, I tried to say. She turned to me. Will you keep working? Or are you expecting my son to support you while you play house? That's not fair, Ryan said. What's not fair, Barbara said, her voice rising, is trapping my son with two babies when you can barely support yourself. I felt like I'd been slapped. Excuse me? You heard me. This is awfully convenient timing. You've been married less than a year, and suddenly you're pregnant with twins? You planned this. You trapped him. Ryan stood up. Mom, that's enough. Was it? Because I'm the only one brave enough to say what everyone's thinking. She's a gold digger who got pregnant on purpose to lock you down. I stood up, shaking. I'm leaving. Ryan followed me out. In the car, I cried. He held me. She didn't mean it. She's just surprised. She'll come around. But she didn't mean it, and she didn't come around. This was just the beginning. 2 weeks after the dinner disaster, Barbara showed up at our house unannounced, with suitcases. I'm moving in, she announced. You're high risk, Sarah. You need help. Family helps family. I looked at Ryan, waited for him to say no. He looked uncomfortable, but said, Mom, we didn't discuss. I'm your mother. I shouldn't have to ask permission to help with my grandchildren. And just like that, she moved into our guest room. That was late April 2024. What followed was 4 months of psychological warfare. She didn't hit me. She didn't scream. She was much smarter than that. She dismantled my life piece by piece, so subtly that Ryan couldn't even see it happening. First, she rearranged everything. Your kitchen is so disorganized, dear. Let me help. She threw out half my food. This isn't healthy for the babies, and replaced it with things I hated. She took over cooking. Every meal was what she wanted to be. Then my bedroom. You need to sleep downstairs. Stairs are dangerous in your condition. She moved me to the guest room, the smallest, dampest room in the house. She and Tom took the master bedroom. Just until the babies come. She went through my mail. I'm just trying to help organize. She asked invasive questions about my bank accounts. What if something happens to you? Ryan should be on all your accounts for emergencies. I refused. That was my first real act of defiance. No, my accounts are my business. Her eyes went cold. What are you hiding, Sarah? Nothing. I just believe in financial independence. Interesting. Most wives trust their husbands. She started answering my phone. Sarah can't talk right now. She needs to rest. My clients started going to voicemail. Some of them stopped calling altogether. My freelance business was dying, but I couldn't explain that I didn't actually need it. She monitored everything I ate. That's too much sugar, too much salt, too many calories. I was constantly hungry but afraid to eat in my own home. She commented on my body constantly. You're gaining so much weight. Are you sure you're not eating for 3? Your face is so puffy. You need to be careful. Twin pregnancy weight is hard to lose. I was 17 weeks pregnant and developing an eating disorder. But the worst part was the isolation. She discouraged my friends from visiting. Sarah needs rest, not social calls. When Emma tried to stop by, Barbara told her, now's not a good time. Sarah's not feeling well. Emma texted me, are you okay? Your mother-in-law is blocking me. I lied. I'm fine, just tired. I'll call you soon. I didn't call, because Barbara was always there, listening, watching. Somewhere around month 4 of the pregnancy, June 2024, Ryan changed. I'd catch him looking at me differently, with suspicion, with doubt. He stopped being affectionate, stopped sleeping in the same room. You need your rest, he said, but I heard Barbara's voice in his words. I'd hear them whispering in the kitchen late at night. Barbara would say, I'm just saying, son, it's very convenient. She got pregnant right after the wedding. Ryan, that's not Barbara, and she's so secretive. Have you ever wondered what she's hiding? Ryan, she's not hiding anything. Barbara, then why won't she let you on her bank accounts? What kind of wife does that? Melissa was visiting constantly now. She'd moved back in with Barbara and Tom after her divorce. She was there every day adding her poison to Barbara's. I'm just worried about Ryan, she'd say, loud enough for me to hear. Sarah seems so secretive. What if those babies aren't his? I confronted Ryan one night. Your mother and sister are poisoning you against me. They're just concerned. About what? I've done nothing wrong. Then why won't you let me see your bank statements? Because they're mine. Because I deserve privacy in my own marriage. Most marriages don't have secrets, Sarah. I'm not keeping secrets. I'm keeping boundaries. There's a difference. But he didn't see the difference. Every day he pulled further away. He started working late, coming home after I was asleep, leaving before I woke up. We were roommates, not spouses. I started noticing things in early July. A car parked across the street that was there too often. Someone following me to doctor's appointments. A man with a camera at the grocery store. I was being followed. I confronted Barbara. Did you hire someone to follow me? She didn't even deny it. I'm protecting my son. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to worry about. This is insane. What's insane is a woman who won't share her finances with her husband. What's insane is all this secrecy. What are you hiding, Sarah? I went to Ryan. Your mother hired a private investigator to follow me. He looked uncomfortable but didn't defend me. Did you give her a reason to be suspicious? I'm your wife. I'm carrying your children. That should be reason enough to trust me. Then prove it. Show me your bank statements. No. Yes, why not? Because once I showed him, everything would change. He'd know. And I still wasn't ready. I was still trying to save the fantasy of normal marriage. So I said nothing. And he took that as guilt. July 28th, 2024. 24 weeks pregnant. I remember the date because I could have lost everything that day. Dr. Patterson had me on modified bed rest. Take it easy, Sarah. Your placenta still hasn't moved. We're watching for signs of placental abruption. Any bleeding, any cramping, you call me immediately. But Barbara didn't care. Bed rest? Women in my generation worked until labor. This is ridiculous. You're being lazy. That afternoon, she handed me a basket of laundry. Take this upstairs. The machine is finished. I'm not supposed to. You're not an invalid. Stop being dramatic. Ryan wasn't home. Tom was in his shed. Melissa was there, though, sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. I carried the basket upstairs. It was heavy. I felt pulling in my abdomen. I got to the top of the stairs, started to walk down. That's when Melissa appeared behind me. Oh, Sarah, I wanted to ask you something. She bumped into me. Hard, from behind. I stumbled forward. The basket went flying. I grabbed the railing with both hands, caught myself, didn't fall. But for 2 seconds, I was weightless. I was about to tumble headfirst down 15 stairs. My babies were about to. I caught the railing, held on. Frozen. Melissa stood there at the top. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? You really need to be more careful on these stairs. They're dangerous. But her eyes were cold, calculating. She'd done it on purpose. She tried to make me fall. She tried to kill my babies. I couldn't even form words. What? It was an accident. You're so clumsy, Sarah. Maybe you shouldn't be carrying heavy things if you can't handle it. That night, I had contractions. Painful ones. Ryan took me to the hospital. I was terrified. 24 weeks. Too early, please God, no. Dr. Patterson examined me. The babies look okay. Their heartbeats are strong, but you've had some cervical changes. You're at risk for preterm labor. I'm putting you on strict bed rest now. No stairs, no lifting, no stress. When we got home, I told Ryan what Melissa had done. She bumped into you, Sarah. That doesn't mean. She did it on purpose. She tried to make me fall. You're being paranoid. I'm being pregnant, and your sister tried to kill your babies, Barbara overheard. Came into the room. Melissa would never. How dare you accuse her of something so horrible? You fell because you were careless. Take responsibility for your own mistakes. I looked at Ryan, waited for him to defend me, to protect me, to be my husband. He looked away. That night, alone in the guest room, I cried until I couldn't breathe. Then I stopped crying. I pulled out my secret phone, the one Barbara didn't know about, and called Emma. I need you to install cameras, hidden ones. Every room except bathrooms and bedrooms. Audio recording. Everything. And I need it done tomorrow while they're at church. Sarah, what's happening? Just do it, please. The next day, Sunday, while the Mitchell family was at church, a team came in. They installed cameras and audio devices in the living room, kitchen, dining room, hallways, disguised as smoke detectors, picture frames, outlet covers. From that moment on, I documented everything. I was building my case. Early August, month 7 of pregnancy. I was on strict bed rest, but Barbara still made me clean, cook, serve the family. The doctors being overly cautious. You're fine. One afternoon, Tom found me in the kitchen, scrubbing the floor on my hands and knees because Barbara had spilled something and demanded I clean it. I was crying from pain. My back was screaming. I was 29 weeks pregnant with twins and scrubbing a floor. Tom knelt down next to me. Sarah, stop. This is wrong. I looked up at him. Then help me. Please tell Ryan what's happening. I see it. I see what Barbara's doing. This has gone too far. Hope flooded through me. Will you talk to him? Will you tell him the truth? I will, I promise. I'm going to make this right. I believed him. For the first time in months, I thought I had an ally. Someone who could see the truth. Someone who would help me. The next day, Tom pulled Ryan aside. I waited in my room, hopeful. Maybe this nightmare was ending. Maybe Tom would be the voice of reason. An hour later, Ryan burst into my room. He was furious. You're trying to turn my father against his own wife? What? No, He told me everything. How you've been complaining about Mom, how you're trying to split up the family, how you want to push them out of our lives. My stomach dropped. That's not what I said? My father doesn't lie, Sarah, but you do. You've been lying this whole time. Tom had betrayed me. He'd gone to Barbara, told her everything I'd said, and Barbara had twisted it, turned it into me being the villain. Later, I saw Tom in the hallway. He couldn't even look at me. Why? I whispered. He looked at his shoes. I'm sorry. Barbara said if I took your side, she'd divorce me. She'd take the house, the money, everything. She'd make sure I never saw my grandchildren. I couldn't. I'm sorry. He walked away, and I realized I was completely alone. No one was coming to save me. Not Ryan, not Tom, no one. If I wanted to survive this, I'd have to save myself. The private investigator Barbara hired, a man named Derek Thompson, followed me everywhere. Doctor's appointments, grocery store, walks around the block when I was allowed outside. He couldn't find anything because there was nothing to find. I was being the perfect pregnant housewife, or at least the prisoner version of it. I heard Barbara on the phone one day, frustrated. There's nothing. Keep looking, there has to be something. Nobody is this clean. But I was, at least in the identity of Sarah, the copywriter. That version of me was boring, broke, and faithful. Late August, 32 weeks pregnant, I overheard a conversation that made my blood run cold. Barbara, Melissa, and Tom in the living room. I was supposed to be napping, but I'd hidden a recorder in my pocket, another thing they didn't know about. Melissa said the investigator found nothing. Maybe she really is faithful. Barbara replied, or maybe she's just smart, but Ryan needs to see her for what she is. He needs a reason to doubt her. Melissa asked, what are you suggesting? Barbara said, what if we created a reason? Tom protested, Barbara, you can't seriously be suggesting. Barbara cut him off. I'm suggesting we protect our son, by any means necessary. I felt sick. They were planning something, but I didn't know what yet. I should have left then. I should have grabbed my emergency bag, called Emma, disappeared. But I was 32 weeks pregnant with twins, and I was afraid. Afraid of going into labor alone. Afraid of legal battles over custody if I left before the babies were born. Afraid that running would make me look guilty of something I hadn't done. So I stayed. And that was my biggest mistake. Melissa knew someone, a tech guy named Connor Briggs who'd been fired from Blake Holdings 2 years ago for stealing proprietary code. He was bitter, broke, and willing to do anything for money. What I didn't know until later, Melissa paid him $15,000 to create fake evidence of me having an affair. This wasn't simple Photoshop. Connor was good. He created sophisticated deepfake images using real photos of me from my social media. He face-swapped me into intimate scenarios with a male model. The metadata looked legitimate because he knew how to fake it. He'd worked in tech before his life fell apart, but the images alone were not enough. They needed more. So they created fake dating app profiles using my real photos. A burner phone with fabricated text conversations. Fake GPS data showing me at hotels. Connor hacked into my phone temporarily to pull real location data, then altered it. Receipts from restaurants and hotels with my signature. Melissa had practiced forging it for weeks. A witness, Melissa's friend Ashley, who would claim she'd seen me with another man. It was elaborate, expensive, calculated. They were building a case to destroy me. September 15th, 35 weeks pregnant. I was enormous, exhausted, in constant pain. The babies were sitting on every organ. I couldn't sleep, couldn't walk more than 20 feet without needing to sit down. Barbara came into my room that evening. She was holding her phone. Her face was triumphant. We need to have a family meeting. Now. I'm tired. Now, Sarah. Ryan was called home from work. Tom was summoned from his shed. Melissa appeared. They all gathered in the living room. I was made to sit in the center like a defendant. Barbara showed her phone. The private investigator sent his final report today. My heart started pounding. He found something very interesting. She scrolled through photos of me, except not me, but it looked like me, in a hotel room with a man I'd never seen, kissing him, in bed with him. What is that? I whispered. That, Barbara said, is proof that you've been cheating on my son. Those aren't real. Those are fake. Melissa jumped in. There's more. She showed her phone. Screenshots of dating app profiles. OkCupid, Tinder, Bumble. All with my photos. All with my name. Messages to different men. Explicit messages. I don't even have these apps. Your phone location data shows you were at the Marriott downtown 7 times in the past 4 months. Ryan was looking at a printout. You told me you were at doctor's appointments. I was at doctor's appointments. These are fakes. Someone manufactured. There's a witness, Barbara said quietly. Ashley Clark. She works at the hotel. She saw you multiple times with a man. Confirmed it was you. The room was spinning. They'd thought of everything. It was airtight. It was brilliant. It was a complete lie. Ryan, please. I stood up, tried to approach him. He stepped back. Don't touch me. Those photos are deep fakes. Someone created them using AI. Please, if you look closely. I've looked, he said, his voice dead. I've looked at all of it, the photos, the messages, the evidence. It's overwhelming, Sarah. It's fabricated, I was screaming now. Your mother and sister are framing me. They want to get rid of me. They hired someone to. Listen to yourself, Barbara said calmly. You sound insane. Paranoid. Maybe the pregnancy hormones are affecting your mental state. I'm not crazy. I'm being set up. Ryan wouldn't even look at me. I want a DNA test after the babies are born. Until we know for sure they're mine, I don't want you near me. They're your sons. Are they? He finally looked at me, the hatred in his eyes. Because right now, Sarah, I don't know what to believe. I don't know who you are. I don't know if I ever did. He walked out. Barbara smiled. Melissa looked at her phone. Tom stared at the floor. I stood there, 8 months pregnant, being called a cheater, a liar, an unfaithful wife. And I had no way to prove my innocence because the evidence against me was perfect. It was fake, but it was perfect. That night, 35 weeks pregnant, I called David Harrison, my lawyer. I need to leave. Now, I need a safe house, a security team, and divorce papers drafted. I'll have everything ready in 48 hours. Make it 24. I packed a small bag, hid it in my car trunk under the spare tire. I had a plan. The next morning, everyone would be at church. They went every Sunday. I'd wait until they left, drive to Charlotte, meet David and Emma at a hotel, have the babies there in safety. I just had to wait one more day. Sunday morning, September 17th, I heard them getting ready for church, waited in my room, heard the front door open, heard the car start. I waited 10 minutes to be safe. Then I got up, grabbed my purse, headed for the door. Melissa was standing in the hallway, going somewhere. My heart stopped. I thought you went to church. I stayed home. Funny that. She was holding something. My bag, the one from the trunk. I found this yesterday when I borrowed your car. What were you planning, Sarah? Barbara appeared from the kitchen, Ryan from the garage. They'd never left. It had been a trap. You were running, Barbara said. You were going to take those babies and disappear. They're my babies. We'll see about that. Ryan, call our lawyer. Ryan was on the phone within minutes. Barbara took my car keys, my phone, my purse. You're not going anywhere, she said. Not until those babies are born and tested. And if they're not Ryan's, you're leaving here with nothing. No babies, no dignity, nothing. They moved me to the basement, the unfinished basement. Cold, damp, moldy. They put a lock on the outside of the door. For your own good, Barbara said, you're clearly unstable, planning to run away with babies that might not even belong to this family. We're protecting you from yourself. The door closed. The lock clicked. I was trapped. 35 weeks pregnant, locked in a basement. No phone, no escape, no hope. I sat on the cold concrete floor and I realized they're going to keep me here until I give birth. Then they're going to take my babies and throw me out. And there was nothing I could do about it. This was it. This was my third peak of despair. I was powerless. Completely, utterly powerless. September 24th, 3 o'clock in the morning, 37 weeks pregnant. I woke up in the basement to searing pain. Contractions, real ones, 3 minutes apart. I've been having Braxton Hicks for weeks, but these were different. These were the real thing. I was locked in a basement, about to give birth, alone. I screamed for help, pounded on the door. Help! Somebody help me! The babies are coming! Nothing, no response. The house was silent above me. I screamed louder, pounded harder. Please, I'm in labor, please! Finally, footsteps. The door unlocked. Barbara stood there in her bathrobe, looking annoyed. Stop being dramatic. You're not due for 3 more weeks. I'm having contractions, 3 minutes apart. The babies are coming now. False labor, you're fine. Go back to sleep. I'm not fine. Another contraction hit. I doubled over, screaming. Barbara watched me for a moment, then closed the door. I heard the lock click. She left me there. I don't know how long I screamed. Time became meaningless. All I knew was pain, terror, and the absolute certainty that I was going to give birth alone in a cold basement, and my babies might die, and I might die, and no one cared. Somewhere around 4 o'clock, I remembered. I had an old iPad I'd found in the basement. No SIM card, but it could connect to Wi-Fi. I crawled to it, hands shaking, contractions coming every 2 minutes now. I pulled up the browser, typed 911.gov, found the text to 911 feature. I'm in labor, 37 weeks pregnant with twins, high-risk pregnancy. I'm locked in a basement. They won't let me out. Please send help. Address 847 Maple Drive, Greenville. Please hurry. I hit send, prayed someone would see it, prayed help was coming. 15 minutes later, 15 minutes that felt like hours, I heard sirens. Pounding on the front door. Police and EMTs, open up. Shouting upstairs. Barbara's voice. There must be some mistake. EMT. We got a 911 text from this address. Someone in labor. Where is she? More shouting, then footsteps running down the basement stairs. The door burst open. 2 paramedics stared at me. 37 weeks pregnant, lying on a concrete floor in a basement, in active labor, crying. Oh my God, one of them said. How long have you been down here? A week. Another contraction. I screamed, Ma'am, we need to get you to the hospital right now. They loaded me onto a stretcher. As they carried me up, I saw the Mitchell family in the living room. Barbara, Gabine, Melissa, Ryan, all in their pajamas looking shocked. Barbara tried to explain to the police, she's been having emotional problems. We were just trying to keep her safe. You locked her in the basement? The officer looked disgusted. While she was in labor. One of the EMTs turned to the family. When we're done at the hospital, we're filing a report with Child Protective Services. This is endangerment. Ryan's face went white. I gave birth at Greenville Memorial Hospital after 22 hours of labor. Ryan showed up at hour 16. Drunk. I could smell the whiskey from across the room. Are you seriously drunk right now? The nurse asked him. I needed something to calm my nerves. He looked at me with cold eyes. When this is over, we're doing that day test. Today. I was in too much pain to argue. Another contraction. I screamed, "You want me to leave?" he asked. "Yes," I managed. "Get out." He left, didn't come back. At 2:37 a.m. on September 25th, my son Logan entered the world. 6 pounds, 2 ounces, perfect. At 2:51 a.m., my son Lucas followed. 5 pounds, 14 ounces, also perfect. I held them both crying. They were so small, so perfect, so mine. "Hi, babies," I whispered. "Hi, I'm your mama. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything you've already been through. But Mama's here. Mama's got you now, and I promise you, I'm going to protect you, no matter what it takes." The nurse asked if I wanted to call anyone. "My husband was already here," I said quietly. "He left?" "Yes." She looked at me with such sadness. "I'm sorry, honey. Do you have anyone else?" I thought about calling Emma, but my phone was still at the house. They'd taken everything. "No," I whispered. "It's just us." So I sat in that hospital room alone with my newborn sons. No flowers, no balloons, no family, no celebration, just me and them against the world. I was in the hospital for 4 days. C-section recovery. The babies were healthy but small, so they kept us for observation. Barbara visited once, on day 2. She walked into my room, looked at the babies in their bassinet, and said, "They have the Mitchell nose. That doesn't prove anything, though. We're still doing the DNA test." She didn't hold them, didn't ask their names, didn't congratulate me. She left after 5 minutes. Melissa texted, "Hope you and the bastards are doing well," with a smiley face emoji. Ryan came by on day 3, sober this time. He stood in the doorway looking at his sons. "Have you picked names?" "Logan and Lucas." He nodded. "Good names." A long silence. "Ryan, just don't. We'll do the DNA test when you get home. Until then, I don't want to get attached to children that might not be mine." He walked out. The social worker came by that afternoon. "Mrs. Mitchell, I have to ask, are you safe at home?" I wanted to scream no. I wanted to tell her everything about the basement, the lock, the abuse, the fabricated evidence, all of it. But if I told her, what would happen? They'd investigate. Maybe take my babies, put them in foster care while they sorted it out. I couldn't risk that, so I lied. "Yes, I'm safe. It's just complicated family dynamics." She looked at me for a long moment. She knew I was lying, but she couldn't prove it. "If you need help, here's a card for domestic abuse resources." I took it, put it in my pocket, nodded, she left, and I was alone again. Day 4, September 29th, discharge day. I called the house. "I'm ready to be picked up." Barbara said, "We're busy. Take a taxi." "I just had a C-section. I have 2 newborns. I can't take a taxi." She hung up. I called a taxi myself. The driver helped me load the car seats I'd bought before the babies were born. I sat in the back, 10-day-old twins beside me, still bleeding from surgery, barely able to walk, taking a taxi home from the hospital. When we pulled up to the house, it was dark. No lights on, no one waiting. The taxi driver looked concerned. "You need help getting inside, ma'am?" "No, thank you." He helped me get the babies to the porch. I paid him with the last cash I had, watched him drive away. Then I opened the door to my house and stepped into hell. No one had prepared anything. The cribs I'd ordered were still in boxes, unassembled. There was no welcome, no help, nothing. I put the babies in their car seats in the living room, the safest place I could think of, and tried to assemble the cribs alone. 10 days post-C-section, stitches pulling, dizzy from blood loss. It took me 3 hours. I cried through most of it. That first night, Logan and Lucas ate every 90 minutes. I was breastfeeding, trying to anyway. It was hard, painful. They weren't latching well. I was exhausted, alone, in agony. Barbara came into my room at 6 o'clock in the morning. "You need to be quieter. Your crying is waking everyone up." "I'm not crying. The babies are crying because they're hungry and I'm trying to feed them." "Then figure it out. And when you're done, the kitchen needs cleaning. There's laundry in the machine. The living room is a mess. I just had major surgery. And women in my day were back to work the next day. Stop being lazy." She left. I sat there, holding my babies, and realized they expect me to take care of everything. The babies, the house, the family. while recovering from a C-section, while bleeding, while barely able to walk. I had no choice, so I did it. The days blurred together. Day 2, I cooked breakfast for the family while holding a screaming baby. My stitches burned. I was pretty sure I was developing an infection. Day 3, Barbara accidentally slammed the door to my room while both babies were finally sleeping. They woke up screaming. When I glared at her, she smiled. Sorry, didn't realize they were asleep. Day 4, I was trying to pump breast milk. It took 30 minutes to pump enough for one feeding. I had 2 bottles full when Melissa walked into the kitchen, grabbed them both, and poured them down the sink. Oops, my hand slipped. I stared at her. That took me an hour to pump. Guess you'll need to do it again. Maybe buy formula instead, from the money you don't have. She walked away laughing. Day 5, I ran out of diapers, asked Ryan to pick some up on his way home. He didn't, said he forgot. I had to use torn-up t-shirts until I could get to the store myself the next day. Day 6, my C-section stitches were definitely infected. Red, hot, oozing. I needed antibiotics. Told Barbara. She said, "You're fine, stop being dramatic." Day 7, I hadn't slept more than 45 minutes at a time in 7 days. I was hallucinating, seeing things in the corners of rooms. I dropped a bottle and it shattered. I stood there staring at the broken glass and couldn't remember what I was supposed to do about it. Ryan walked in. "Clean it up, you're making a mess." I looked at him, this stranger wearing my husband's face, and felt absolutely nothing. Day 8, October 7th, 3 o'clock in the morning, I was in the basement again. They'd moved me back down there because the babies are too loud upstairs. I was feeding Lucas while Logan screamed in his bassinet. My C-section infection was raging now. I had a fever of 103. I was shaking, dizzy, barely conscious. Both babies were crying. I couldn't remember the last time I'd eaten, or drunk water, or slept. I looked at the water heater in the corner of the basement. Natural gas. I could see the valve. For 10 seconds, just 10 seconds, I thought about it. How easy it would be. Turn the valve, lie down with my babies, go to sleep, end this nightmare. All of us peaceful, together, away from this horror. Logan was crying, Lucas was crying, I was crying. Everything hurt. Everything was impossible. I started to reach for the valve. Then Logan stopped crying. He looked at me with his big blue eyes, Ryan's eyes, and made a little coo sound, and something in me shattered and reformed at the same time. "No," I whispered. "No, Mama's not giving up. Mama's fighting. Mama's getting us out of here." I used the last of my strength to pound on the door. For 20 minutes straight, pounding and screaming until my hands were blowing. Finally, Melissa opened it. "What is your problem?" She saw me, saw the fever, saw the blood soaking through my clothes, saw the baby screaming. For a second, even she looked scared. "I need a hospital. The infection. I'm dying, please." She called Barbara. Barbara called 911, but told them, "My daughter-in-law is being dramatic about some pain, but maybe you should check on her for the baby's sake." The ambulance came, again, second time in 10 days. At the hospital, the ER doctor was furious. "Your C-section incision is severely infected. You have sepsis. You could have died. Who's been monitoring this? Where's your follow-up care?" I was too busy. "Too busy? You just had major surgery. Where is your family? Where is your support?" The social worker came again. "Mrs. Mitchell, this is the second time we've seen you in 2 weeks. Both times there are signs of neglect. I need you to be honest with me. Are you being abused?" I looked at my babies in the hospital bassinet, thought about what would happen if I told the truth. Foster care, separation, legal battles. "No," I lied. "I'm just not taking good enough care of myself. I'll do better." She didn't believe me, but she had no proof. They gave me IV antibiotics, kept me for 18 hours, fixed my incision, told me to rest. Then they sent me back to the house, back to the basement, back to hell. I had 2 more days until the midnight expulsion. 2 more days of the worst abuse of my entire life. And I had no idea it was about to get even worse. October 8th, day 9 of my son's lives. Connor Briggs, the tech guy Melissa had paid, delivered his final evidence package. More deepfakes, more sophisticated, screenshots of Sarah's dating app activity during my pregnancy, fake GPS data showing me at hotels while I was actually at home, forged receipts, everything. But the most damaging piece? A fake video call recording. Connor had used deepfake technology to create a video of me having a video sex call with a man. It looked so real. The technology was incredible and horrifying. Barbara showed it to Ryan that evening. I didn't know yet. I was in the basement with the babies, trying to survive. Ryan watched the video. His face went white, then red, then cold. I want her out, tonight. What? Even Barbara sounded surprised. Tonight, I want her out of my house tonight. Her and those children that aren't mine. Ryan, it's late. I don't care. I want her gone. Now, before I do something I regret. Melissa texted Ashley, the witness, who sent a statement claiming she'd seen me at hotels 6 times confirming the affair. They had everything they needed. It was airtight, perfect, completely fabricated. But they believed it, or at least Ryan wanted to believe it, because believing I cheated was easier than admitting his family was destroying an innocent woman. I was feeding Lucas while Logan slept when the basement door slammed open. The whole family stood there. Ryan, Barbara, Melissa, Tom, all of them, their faces twisted with hatred. My heart started pounding. Something was very, very wrong. Melissa spoke first, her phone held up like a weapon. We know everything, Sarah. We have proof, final proof. She showed me a video, a deepfake video of me, except not me, but it looked exactly like me, in a video call with a strange man, touching myself, saying things I would never say. That's not me. That's fake. That's AI generated. Barbara started screaming, Liar! We have witnesses. We have evidence. We know you were cheating on my son throughout your entire pregnancy. Those babies, Melissa pointed at Logan and Lucas, aren't even Mitchell's. You brought bastards into this home. You lied to all of us. Ryan's face was stone, cold, dead. I want a DNA test, right now. Ryan, please listen to me. Look at these videos closely. They're deep fakes. Someone is framing me. Someone? Barbara laughed. You think there's some conspiracy against you? You think we're all crazy? Or maybe, just maybe, you're a cheater and a liar. Tom stepped forward. Ryan, maybe we should wait until morning. No, Ryan said. I want her out, tonight. I clutched Logan tighter, moved toward the bassinet where Lucas lay. It's midnight. It's freezing outside. These are newborns, your newborns. Please, Ryan, whatever you think I did, don't punish them. Melissa moved toward the bassinet. Maybe we should keep them. Get the DNA test. If they're Mitchell's, they belong here. But she needs to go. Terror shot through me. They were trying to take my babies. No, I grabbed Lucas from the bassinet. Now I had both boys in my arms. No, you don't touch them. They're mine. Barbara's face contorted with rage. They're nothing. They're bastards from your whoring around. Get them out of this house. Out! She actually lunged at me, trying to grab one of the babies from my arms. I turned, protected them with my body. Barbara's hand connected with my face, a slap that made my ears ring. Ryan pulled her back. Mom, don't. But the damage was done. She'd hit me, while I was holding my newborn sons. Tom opened the front door. December cold air rushed in. The temperature had dropped to 28 degrees. Out, he said simply. I looked at Ryan one more time. My husband, the father of my children, the man I'd loved enough to hide my entire identity for. They're 10 days old, Ryan. 10 days, it's winter. Please. We can do the DNA test tomorrow. Please don't do this. For just a second, something flickered in his eyes. Doubt? Regret? Love? But then Barbara whispered something in his ear, and his face hardened. He walked toward me, put his hands on my shoulders, and pushed. I stumbled backward toward the open door, barely kept my footing, held my babies tighter. They were screaming now, sensing the danger. Ryan, I tried one more time. He pushed again, harder. I was on the porch now. wind cutting through my thin clothes, babies crying in the freezing air. Barbara appeared in the doorway. She looked me dead in the eyes and spat. The saliva hit my cheek, warm and disgusting. "You're nothing," she hissed. "You're garbage, and garbage belongs on the street." The door slammed. I heard multiple locks click. Then the porch light went off. I stood there in the dark, in the cold, bleeding, exhausted, holding my 10-day-old sons. For 30 seconds, I couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't process what had just happened. My babies were turning red from the cold. They were crying. I could barely feel my feet. Blood was running down my legs. My C-section incision throbbed. I was going to die out here. My babies were going to die. This was it. This was the end. Then something happened. Something changed. I stopped crying. I looked at that house, at the lights turning off one by one inside, at my so-called family going back to their warm beds without a second thought about the woman and babies freezing on their porch. And I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. Not fear, not despair, rage. Pure, focused, ice-cold rage. I whispered to my sons, "Mama's got you. Mama's going to fix this. I promise you they will pay for this. Every single one of them." I shifted both babies to one arm, pulled out my emergency phone from the diaper bag with my free hand. The phone they didn't know I had, my real phone. Connected to my real life, I dialed. One number. "David, it's me. I'm ready. Come get us. It's time." "Sarah? What? Where are you?" 847 Maple Drive, outside. They threw us out, me and the babies. "We're freezing. Please hurry." "I'm 5 minutes away. Hold on." I hung up, wrapped my body around my sons, trying to keep them warm, whispered to them, "Logan, Lucas, Mama promises you, you will never be cold again. You will never be scared again. You will never be hurt again." And the people who did this to us, they're going to wish they'd never been born. Headlights appeared. A black Range Rover pulled up. Emma jumped out of the passenger seat, David from the driver's side. "Oh my God, Sarah." Emma was crying. She wrapped a blanket around me and the babies. David was on the phone. "I need 2 pediatric EMTs at Charlotte Plaza Hotel, Suite 4000, now. 2 10-day-old infants who've been exposed to freezing temperatures." They loaded us into the car. The heat was on full blast. Emma took one baby, I kept the other. They were starting to calm down, getting warm. As we drove away, I looked back at that house one final time. I saw a curtain move, someone watching. Maybe Ryan, maybe Barbara. I smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who just declared war. "David," I said, my voice calm and cold, "I want to destroy them. Completely. Legally. Permanently. Can you do that?" He glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "Yes. Yes, I can." "Then do it. Spare nothing. Show no mercy." "What about Ryan? He's still technically your husband." I looked down at Lucas in my arms, at Logan in Emma's arms, my perfect, innocent sons who'd been thrown away like trash by their own father. "Especially Ryan," I said quietly. "I want him to understand what he threw away. I want him to live with that knowledge every day for the rest of his life." Sarah, the copywriter, died that night on that porch. Catherine Sarah Blake, Billionaire CEO, was back, and she was out for blood. We drove to Charlotte, 30 minutes from Greenville, the city where my real life existed. Charlotte Plaza Hotel, top floor. I owned the hotel, but the Mitchells didn't know that. David had booked the presidential suite under a fake name. When we walked in, a full medical team was waiting. Private NICU nurse, pediatrician, OB/GYN for me. The pediatrician examined Logan and Lucas. "They're okay. Cold stress but no hypothermia. They'll be fine." The OB examined me, looked at my infected C-section incision. "This is busted. You need IV antibiotics immediately. You're severely dehydrated. You've lost too much blood. Mrs. Blake, you should be in a hospital." "I can't. Not yet. I have work to do first." She wanted to argue but saw something in my eyes and nodded. "Fine, but I'm staying here and monitoring you." Emma took the babies. "I've got them. You rest." I couldn't rest, not yet. "David, war room now." Within 2 hours, my full team had assembled in the suite's conference room. David Harrison, family lawyer; Patricia Clark, criminal attorney; James Rodriguez, corporate attorney; Angela Thompson, PR specialist; Marcus Webb, private investigator; Catherine Lewis, financial analyst. I walked into that room wearing a designer suit I'd had Emma bring. Pearl gray, Armani, worth $4,000. I looked like a CEO again. I felt like myself again. Thank you all for coming on short notice. Some of you know me as Sarah Mitchell. That identity no longer exists. I'm Catherine Sarah Blake, CEO of Blake Holdings, and I need you to destroy the people who just threw me and my newborn sons into the freezing cold. I clicked a button. The screen behind me lit up with photos of the Mitchell family. Target 1, Ryan Mitchell. Target 2, Barbara Mitchell. Target 3, Melissa Mitchell Hartley. Target 4, Thomas Mitchell. Marcus spoke first. Ma'am, I've already completed the background investigation you requested 2 months ago. Here's what I found. He pulled up his findings. Ryan worked for Hudson Property Management, which was owned by my company. He had $28,000 in credit card debt and a $15,000 online gambling problem. Barbara lived in a house I owned, rent-free through a charity I funded. She'd embezzled $127,000 from her husband's business. She had a secret bank account in the Cayman Islands. Melissa's boutique operated in a building I own. She had $80,000 in business debt. Her ex-husband had a restraining order against her. Tom's consulting business survived on contracts with my vendors. He had $45,000 in gambling debts. I sat back, processing. They literally live on my money. Their entire existence is funded by me, and they threw me out in the cold. Patricia, my criminal attorney, spoke next. I've reviewed the videos and audio recordings you provided. We have clear evidence of child endangerment, false imprisonment, assault, fraud, conspiracy, forgery, and defamation. We can press criminal charges against all of them. James, the corporate attorney, and on the business side, we can terminate Ryan's employment, evict Barbara, terminate Melissa's lease, cancel Thomas's contracts, report Barbara's embezzlement, and freeze her offshore accounts. All legally, all immediately. Angela, the PR specialist. And I can make this the biggest story of the year. Billionaire CEO hidden as housewife, abused by in-laws, thrown out with newborns. The videos and audio you have are devastating. This will be global news. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Do all of it, everything. I want them to wake up tomorrow and find their entire world has collapsed. I want it legal, documented, and public. I want everyone to know what they did. David looked concerned. Sarah, this is aggressive. We could handle it quietly through courts. I don't want quiet. I want them humiliated. I want them destroyed so completely that their names become synonyms for cruelty and stupidity. I want them to understand what it feels like to lose everything in one night, the way they tried to make me lose everything. Patricia nodded. Then we begin tomorrow, December 24th, Christmas Eve. I smiled. Perfect. Let them spend Christmas in hell. Christmas Eve morning, December 24th, Ryan woke up at 6 o'clock to his phone ringing. His boss wanted him at the office immediately. He arrived at 7. His boss's face was grim. Ryan, Hudson has been acquired by Blake Holdings. We're under new ownership. They've done an audit of all staff. Your employment is terminated effective immediately for violation of ethical conduct standards. You were recorded throwing your wife and newborn children out of your home in freezing temperatures. Blake Holdings has a zero-tolerance policy for domestic abuse. Ryan's face went white. How did they? Who? Your severance package is $0 due to for-cause termination. Security will escort you out. Ryan was walked out at 7:30 on Christmas Eve. No job, no severance, no prospects. He got to his car and found an envelope on his windshield. Inside, divorce papers, custody papers, a note. The babies are mine. You gave up your rights when you threw them into the cold. DNA test results attached. 99.9% probability you're the father. Congratulations. You destroyed your own family. Sarah. He sat in his car and threw up. Barbara was making breakfast when the doorbell rang at 8. A courier with a certified letter. Notice of eviction. Your tenancy is terminated due to fraudulent application for housing assistance. You have 72 hours to vacate. She called the property management company. There must be a mistake. No mistake, ma'am. The building was purchased by Blake Properties, LLC. Your application contained false information. You have 72 hours. Who is Blake Properties? I'm not at liberty to say, ma'am. She hung up, shaking. 10 minutes later, another knock. The police. Barbara Mitchell? Yes. We have a warrant for your arrest. Embezzlement, fraud, money laundering. They handcuffed her, read her rights. Tom watched in shock as they loaded her into a police car on Christmas Eve morning. Bail was set at $100,000. Tom couldn't afford it. She stayed in jail. Melissa was opening her boutique at 9 when she found the eviction notice on the door. Building condemned, multiple code violations. All tenants must vacate immediately. She called the building management. What violations? The new owners did an inspection, fire code violations, electrical hazards, mold, Blake Commercial Properties. She went inside to grab her merchandise, found another envelope. Civil suit for defamation, fraud, conspiracy, and emotional distress. Plaintiff, Catherine Sarah Blake. Damages sought, $2.5 million. Attached, stills from the deepfake videos. Bank records showing her payment to Connor Briggs. Text messages between her and Connor. Everything. She collapsed to the floor. They had proof. They had everything. Tom received 3 phone calls that morning. His clients were terminating contracts. His bank was calling in his business loan. Blake Financial Services now owned it. Within 3 hours, Tom had lost 80% of his income and had a 6-figure debt due immediately. He called Ryan. Something's happening. Someone's targeting us. Ryan's voice was hollow. I know who. Who? Sarah. It's Sarah. She's doing this. Sarah? Your wife? The copywriter? How could she possibly? I don't think she's a copywriter, Dad. I don't think we ever knew who she was at all. They gathered at the house. Tom, Melissa, Ryan. Barbara was in jail. They sat in the living room where they'd plotted against me, where they'd called me trash. Tom spoke first. Someone named Blake is destroying us. Who the hell is Blake? Melissa whispered him. Sarah's last name is Blake. Silence. Ryan said, no, that's impossible. She's nobody. Did you ever actually see her bank statements? Tom asked. No. Did you ever actually know her, Ryan? Ryan's face crumbled. Oh, God, what if we were wrong about all of it? Melissa pulled out her phone, Googled Catherine Blake CEO. The results came up. Forbes articles, business magazines, photos, and there was Sarah. Except in these photos, she was wearing designer suits, standing in front of skyscrapers, accepting awards. PropTech Princess Catherine Blake takes company public at 28. Billionaire CEO Blake Holdings valued at $1.8 billion. Catherine Blake, the youngest self-made female billionaire. Melissa's phone fell from her hands. Oh no, no. Ryan grabbed her phone, stared at the screen, at his wife, his billionaire wife whom he'd thrown out in the cold. This can't be real. But it was. Every article, every photo, every detail. Sarah Blake was Catherine Sarah Blake, billionaire CEO, and they'd called her trash. They'd abused her. They'd thrown her and her children, his children, into the freezing cold because they thought she was nobody. Tom said what they were all thinking. We're dead. We're completely dead. Ryan looked at the photo on Melissa's phone. Sarah, Catherine, looking powerful, confident, in control. He'd destroyed her, and he'd given her every reason to destroy him back. And she was just getting started. December 26th, 2 days after Christmas. The announcement went out at 8 in the morning. Blake Holdings CEO Catherine Blake to hold press conference at 2 p.m. regarding recent events. Media invited. National outlets picked it up immediately. CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, local news stations, business reporters, human interest journalists. Nobody knew what it was about, but Blake Holdings was a billion-dollar company. Any press conference from Catherine Blake was news. The venue, Charlotte Convention Center, main hall, capacity 2,000, every seat filled. I was in the hotel suite getting ready. Emma helped me dress. White suit, Armani, perfectly tailored. White symbolizes purity, innocence, truth. Hair and makeup professionally done. I look powerful, in control, beautiful. The twins were with their nanny and pediatrician in the adjoining suite, safe, protected. David came in. Are you sure about this? Once you go public, there's no taking it back. I'm sure. The videos are intense. People are going to cry. This is going to be everywhere. Good. I want it everywhere. I want the world to see what they did. I looked at myself in the mirror one final time. This was it. The moment I stopped hiding. The moment I took back my power. Let's go. I walked onto that stage at 2 o'clock exactly. The room went silent, camera flashes everywhere. I looked out at a sea of faces, journalists, cameras, recording devices. I walked to the podium, adjusted the microphone, looked directly into the cameras. My name is Catherine Sarah Blake. I am the founder and CEO of Blake Holdings, a prop tech company currently valued at $1.8 billion. I'm 32 years old. I built this company from nothing after my parents died in a plane crash 7 years ago. Pause, let that sink in. I am also the woman you may have seen in videos that are currently circulating online. Videos of me being thrown out of my home at midnight on December 23rd with my 10-day-old twin sons in 28-degree weather while recovering from a C-section. Videos of me standing on a porch bleeding, holding screaming newborns, begging not to be thrown away like trash. The room erupted. Questions shouted from every direction. I held up my hand. Please, let me tell my story. Then you can ask questions. Silence again. 4 years ago, I met a man named Ryan Mitchell. I told him everything. The decision to hide my wealth, the abuse during pregnancy, the fabricated evidence, the locked basement, the birth, the expulsion. As I spoke, the screens behind me came to life. Hidden camera footage, audio recordings. The room watched in horror as Barbara poured my breast milk down the sink, as Melissa pushed me near the stairs, as Barbara locked me in the basement, as the family discussed creating evidence against me, as they confronted me with the fake evidence, as Barbara spit in my face, as Ryan pushed me out the door, as I stood on the porch with my babies in the freezing cold. By the end, half the room was crying. The other half looked furious. When the videos ended, I continued. They threw me out because they believed fabricated evidence that I had been unfaithful. They refused to listen to my denials. They chose to believe lies over trusting the mother of those children. I paused for effect. What the Mitchell family didn't know when they threw me out was that they lived in a house I own. They worked for companies I own. They survived on money that came from my generosity. Their entire existence was funded by me. Gasps, murmurs. Ryan Mitchell worked for a company I own and didn't know it. Barbara and Tom Mitchell lived rent-free in a house I own through a charity program I fund. Melissa Mitchell's boutique operates in a building I own. Their survival depended on my kindness. I let that sink in. And they repaid that kindness by locking me in a basement, by fabricating evidence of infidelity, by throwing me and my newborn sons into the freezing cold on December 23rd, 10 days after I gave birth via C-section, while I was bleeding, infected, and could barely walk. My voice dropped lower, harder. I am not a victim. I am a mother who will protect her children. I am a CEO who will not tolerate abuse. I am a woman who will not be silenced or thrown away. I clicked to the next slide. Photos of Ryan, Barbara, Melissa. Today, I am announcing divorce proceedings against Ryan Mitchell with full custody of our sons. Criminal charges of child endangerment against Ryan, Barbara, and Melissa Mitchell. Criminal charges of fraud and conspiracy against Melissa Mitchell for creating deepfake evidence. Embezzlement charges against Barbara Mitchell for stealing $127,000 from her husband. Civil suits for defamation and emotional distress against all defendants. Termination of all business relationships with the Mitchell family. and a $5 million donation to establish Haven House Foundation, a shelter and support system for abused mothers and their children. The room erupted again. I held up my hand one more time. I'm sharing this story not for revenge, though there will be justice. I'm sharing it because abuse doesn't discriminate. Wealthy women are abused. Poor women are abused. Educated women are abused. It happens behind closed doors in mansions and mobile homes alike. If you are being abused, know this: document everything. Trust your instincts, protect yourself legally, leave safely, and understand that you deserve better. You deserve safety, respect, and love. Don't settle for less. Thank you. I walked off the stage to chaos. Within 30 minutes, the press conference was trending #1 worldwide. Hashtag justice for Sarah. Hashtag Blake twins. Hashtag billionaire abuse. Hashtag Mitchell family. The videos were viewed 200 million times in the first 24 hours. News coverage on every network. Billionaire CEO hidden as housewife reveals shocking abuse. Family throws out CEO and newborns. Didn't know she was a billionaire. Blake Holdings CEO's horrifying tale of domestic abuse. Think pieces, op-eds, social media explosion. Celebrities tweeted support. Oprah. This woman's strength is incredible. Reese Witherspoon. Every woman deserves better. Ellen. Abuse happens in every community, every income level. The Mitchells couldn't leave their homes. Reporters everywhere. Their phone numbers leaked. Thousands of messages, death threats, which I publicly denounced. Ryan tried to go to a grocery store, recognized immediately. People confronted him. You threw out your babies. Real man right here throws out his newborn sons in the cold. Your wife was a billionaire and you treated her like trash. He left without buying anything. Went home. Couldn't escape. Barbara, released on bail, tried to defend herself on Facebook. She was deceiving us. The comments destroyed her as a, so you abused a pregnant woman because she had money? She was deceiving you. She was testing you. And you failed. Those babies were 10 days old and you threw them out in 28-degree weather. You're a monster. The Mitchells became pariahs overnight. Blake Holdings stock actually went up 12% after the press conference. Investors loved the story. A CEO who overcame adversity, strong leadership. I was interviewed by major outlets. 60 Minutes special. Good Morning America interview. The Ellen Show appearance. Cover of Time magazine. The CEO who fought back. I became a symbol, not just of wealth, not just of revenge, but of survival, of strength, of refusing to be silenced. And the Mitchells, they became symbols too, of cruelty, of stupidity, of what happens when you underestimate someone. Their names were poison forever. 3 days after the press conference, December 29th, arrests were made. Barbara was charged with child endangerment, false imprisonment, assault, embezzlement, money laundering, and fraud. Melissa was charged with child endangerment, conspiracy to commit fraud, and defamation. Ryan was charged with child endangerment and assault. Tom was not charged criminally. He cooperated, gave you the full deposition, testified against Barbara. The trials were quick. The evidence was overwhelming. The videos were damning. Barbara's trial. The prosecutor played the audio of her planning to create evidence, showed the video of her spitting on me. Medical expert testified about my C-section infection and how forcing me to work likely caused it. Fire marshal testified about the unsafe basement conditions. Jury deliberated 1 hour. Verdict: guilty on all counts. Judge's statement: Mrs. Mitchell, I've been on the bench for 23 years. This is one of the most egregious cases of familial abuse I've ever seen. You targeted a vulnerable new mother. You put newborn infants at risk. You showed no remorse. Sentence: 12 years in federal prison. Barbara screamed when they read it. That woman is a liar. She deserves what happened. Judge: your son was the one who needed protecting. From you. Melissa's federal trial. FBI forensic expert testified about the deepfakes. Connor Briggs testified in exchange for immunity. She paid me $15,000. She told me to make the images look as real as possible. Text messages between Melissa and Connor shown. Melissa, make her look like a whore. Connor, these will be very convincing. Melissa, perfect. I want her gone. Verdict, guilty. Sentence, 6 years federal prison plus $25,000 fine. Ryan's trial. His lawyer tried to argue diminished capacity, undue influence from his mother. But the prosecutor showed the video. Ryan pushing me out the door, his face cold, uncaring. I was called to testify. First time I'd seen Ryan since that night. Prosecutor, Mrs. Blake, can you describe what happened on the night of December 23rd? Me, calm, controlled. My husband pushed me out of our home. I was 10 days postpartum. I was bleeding from a C-section infection. I was holding our newborn sons. It was 28 degrees outside. He pushed me, and then he closed the door and locked it. Prosecutor, did he say anything? Me, he said he didn't know if the babies were his, even though I'd told him repeatedly they were, even though I'd offered to do a day test in the morning. He chose to believe lies over trusting me, over protecting his own children. Prosecutor, how did that make you feel? I looked directly at Ryan for the first time, betrayed, heartbroken, and utterly alone. Ryan was crying openly in the courtroom. Verdict, guilty of child endangerment, not guilty on assault. The jury believed he was manipulated. Sentence, 3 years probation, mandatory therapy, supervised visitation only, $3,000 per month child support. The judge added, Mr. Mitchell, your weakness enabled the abuse of your wife and children. You were too cowardly to stand up to your mother. You chose loyalty to an abuser over protecting your family. I hope you spend every day of your supervised visits remembering what you threw away. I sued all three for emotional distress. Jury awarded $2.5 million from Barbara, $1 million from Melissa, $500,000 from Ryan. I donated all of it to Haven House Foundation. I don't want their money, I told reporters. I want them to understand consequences. I want other abusers to see what happens when you target the wrong person. Late spring evening, golden hour. My penthouse has a rooftop garden. I had it built after we moved in. Logan and Lucas are toddling through the grass, chasing bubbles that Emma is blowing. Emma's daughter, Sophie, now 4, is helping them catch them. I sit on a wooden bench watching. I'm wearing jeans and a faded Georgetown t-shirt. No makeup, hair in a messy ponytail. I look peaceful. Emma finishes the bubbles and sits next to me. You okay today? Yeah, good day. Dr. Morrison says I'm making progress. Sleeping better? Most nights, the nightmares are less frequent. That's good. We watch the children play. You know it's okay to not be okay, right? You don't have to be the strong CEO all the time. I smile sadly. I'm so tired of people calling me strong. I don't feel strong. I feel held together with duct tape and stubbornness. That's called being human. That's actually stronger than pretending everything's fine. Logan runs over, falls on his bottom, starts to cry. I immediately go to him, pick him up, check him over. You're okay, buddy. Just a little tumble, see? Nothing broken. Logan stops crying, wipes his nose on my shirt, squirms to get down, runs back to play. You're an incredible mom, you know that? I watch my boys. I'm a terrified mom. Every day I wake up afraid. Afraid someone will try to take them. Afraid I'll mess them up somehow. Afraid I'm not enough. That's called love. You're doing it right. A car pulls up in the parking area below. Tom gets out carrying a shopping bag. I tense slightly. Old habits. I'm a few minutes early. Should I wait? No, come up. Tom climbs the stairs to the rooftop garden. The boys see him and run over. Pop, pop. He kneels down, careful, gentle. Hey guys, look what I brought. He pulls out 2 small toy dump trucks. The boys are thrilled. He sits on the grass with them, playing, making truck noises. The boys giggling. Emma watches carefully. She doesn't trust him. She never will. You sure about him? He testified. He told the truth. He's trying. And the boys deserve one grandparent who isn't a monster. He enabled a monster for 40 years. I know, but he's also the only one who showed actual remorse. the only one doing the work. So I'm giving him this, supervised, limited, but I'm giving him a chance. Tom looks over, catches my eye, mouths silently, "Thank you." I nod. My phone buzzes. Text message. Unknown number. I shouldn't look, but I do. "Please, I know I don't deserve it. I know I destroyed everything, but please, just talk to me once. Let me explain. Let me apologize properly. I'm begging you, Sarah, please." Ryan. I stare at the message for a long moment. Emma reads over my shoulder. "You going to respond?" "No." "Good. He wants forgiveness so he can feel better. That's not my job anymore. My job is protecting my sons. And I can't do that by letting their father back in. The man who threw them into the cold when they were 10 days old. What if he's changed? What if he really means it? Then he can prove it by respecting my boundaries, by paying his child support on time, by showing up to his supervised visits sober and prepared, by doing the work without needing me to witness it. I delete the message without responding. I don't hate him anymore. I feel nothing. And that's freedom. We sit in silence for a moment, watching the children play. Blake Holdings has grown to 2.2 billion valuation. I've been on the cover of Forbes 3 times. Haven House Foundation now operates in 8 states. 2,847 mothers and children helped in 18 months. Growing every day. I personally mentor abuse survivors, give talks, share my story. I'm dating casually. Nothing serious. I'm not ready, I told Emma. Maybe someday, but right now my boys and my work are enough. Ryan works at a car wash, $15 an hour, lives in a studio apartment in a bad part of town, sees his sons once a month, supervised visits at a family center. Every visit, the boys cry. They don't know him. They call him that man. Every visit, Ryan cries too. He's in therapy, court mandated, but also because he wants to be. He wrote me a letter, 12 pages, apologizing, explaining, begging for forgiveness. I didn't respond. He framed one photo, me holding the twins in the hospital, hours after birth, before everything fell apart, before he destroyed us. He looks at it every night. Reminder of what he lost. He'll never get another job in property management. His name is Poison. Background checks turn up, the criminal record, the news articles, the videos. He's alone, broken, living with consequences. Barbara is serving year 2 of 12 in federal prison in West Virginia, works in the prison laundry. 12 cents an hour, no visitors. Ryan tried once. She refused to see him. Tom divorced her. Melissa's in a different prison. She's alone. She wrote me a letter. "I'm sorry, I was wrong. Please forgive me." I burned it without reading past the first line. Barbara will be 74 when she's released, if she makes it that long. Melissa is serving year 2 of 6 in federal prison in Kentucky. Lost custody of her daughter from her previous marriage. Ex-husband got full custody. Works in prison kitchen. Has had 2 suicide attempts, on suicide watch. She writes apology letters to me every week, sends them. I never respond. Melissa will be 35 when released. No career, no family, no prospects. Tom is the only one not in prison. Lives with his brother in a small apartment. Works part-time at Home Depot. $13 an hour. Has supervised visits with his grandsons. Once a week. He brings them toys, reads to them, plays with them gently. The boys like him, call him Pop Pop. I allowed this because Tom was the only one who showed genuine remorse, who testified, who tried to make things right. He cries every time he sees them. "I'm sorry," he tells me every visit. "I'm so sorry for what I let happen." I don't forgive him, but I don't punish him either. "You enabled evil," I told him once. "You knew it was wrong and you stayed silent, but you also tried to help, even if you failed. So I'll give you this. You can know your grandsons, but you'll never be trusted, not completely." He nods, accepts it. It's more than he deserves. The sun is setting now, golden light on everything. Tom brings the boys back to me. "Thank you for today. See you next week." He leaves quietly. Emma gathers Sophie. "Same time next week?" "Always." "Love you, boss." "I'm not your boss anymore. We're friends." "Fine, love you, friend." They hug. Emma leaves. I'm alone with my boys now. Logan and Lucas are tired, rubbing their eyes. Okay, guys, let's go inside. Bath time, then bed. Logan says, story, Mama? Yes, baby, always a story. Lucas says, Mama, stay? My eyes fill with tears, but they're good tears, healing tears. Yes, Mama always stays. Mama will never leave you, ever. I pick them both up. They're heavy now, but I manage. Carry them toward the house. People ask me if I regret hiding my wealth, if I regret marrying Ryan, if I wish I'd done things differently. The truth? I regret nothing. Every choice led me here. To them. They tried to break me. They did break me. I shattered into 1,000 pieces on that frozen porch 18 months ago. But here's what they didn't understand about breaking someone. You can't control how they put themselves back together. I rebuilt myself, harder, sharper, clearer about what matters. I'm not the same woman I was. I don't trust easily. I sleep with a security system that could guard Fort Knox. I see a therapist twice a week. I take medication for anxiety. Sometimes I have panic attacks when someone knocks on the door unexpectedly. I'm damaged, but I'm not broken anymore. There's a difference. To anyone listening who's in darkness right now, I see you. 18 months ago, I was you. I stood in the cold with everything taken from me. My dignity, my safety, my family. I thought I was powerless. I thought I had nothing. But I was wrong. I had me. I had my will to survive. I had my love for my children. And that was enough. That was everything. Inside now, bath time. The mish splash and giggle. I wash their hair, careful not to get soap in their eyes. They're singing nonsense songs to each other. Twin language only they understand. After bath, pajamas. Logan's have dinosaurs. Lucas's have rockets. They pick them out themselves. They're learning independence. Learning they have choices. Bedtime story. I read Where the Wild Things Are. The same book Ryan read to kids that day I met him at the library. But now it's ours. Mine and my boys. New memories replacing old ones. And Max, the king of all wild things, was lonely and wanted to be where someone loved him best of all. Lucas is already asleep, Logan fighting it but losing. I kiss both their foreheads, turn on the nightlight, close the door halfway, walk down the hallway to my own room, sit on my bed, pick up my phone, open Haven House Foundation Instagram, scroll through photos. Women I've helped, babies in safe homes, families thriving. 2,847 families helped on the counter. My pain had a purpose. It became power, not the power I had before. Money, influence, control, real power. The power to change lives, to break cycles, to save others. I put the phone down. Look at a framed photo on my nightstand. Me holding the twins hours after birth, exhausted but glowing. I won, not because they went to prison, not because I took everything they had. I won because I'm free, because my sons are safe, because I chose myself. The sound of the baby monitor, Logan and Lucas breathing peacefully in sleep. That midnight on the porch was the worst moment of my life, but it was also the beginning of my real life. The life where I stopped pretending, stopped hiding, stopped shrinking myself to make others comfortable. They threw me away like garbage, and I rose from it like a phoenix. I turn off the light, lay down, close my eyes. Sleep comes easier now. The nightmares less frequent, the fear less sharp. Tomorrow I'll wake up, kiss my boys good morning, make them breakfast, go to work, build my empire, help more mothers, live my life, my real life, the one I chose, the one I earned, the one no one can ever take from me again. I am Catherine Sarah Blake. I am a billionaire. I am a CEO. I am a survivor. But most importantly, I am a mother, and I am free. Next morning, kitchen, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. I'm making pancakes. The boys in their high chairs, babbling to each other in twin language. Logan looks at me. Mama happy? I stop. Look at my son. Really look at his beautiful face, his innocence. His trust. Yes, baby, mama's happy. Lucas reaches for me. Love you, mama. My eyes fill with tears, but they're good tears. Healing tears. I love you too, both of you, more than anything in this whole world. I kiss both their heads. They giggle. Sticky pancake hands in my hair. I don't care. Emma arrives with coffee, hands me a cup. We stand together watching the boys eat messily and happily. You did it, you know, you survived. I smile. We did it. I couldn't have done it without you. What's next? You've conquered revenge, rebuilt your life, started a foundation. What's the next mountain to climb? I look at my boys, at this life I've built, this safe, happy, free life. Nothing, no mountains, just this, just them, just living. That's enough. That's everything. The boys laugh at something, that pure toddler joy. I laugh too, a real laugh, free, unguarded. This is my life now. This is my family. This is my happiness. And no one can ever take it away from me again.